Alrighty, Tiger fans, welcome back to the YouTube video. Apologies about the slight delay in no content. As I posted, have been a little bit crook, but a bit has been happening in the last, well, we'll call it 24 hours in terms of Richmond-related stuff. I suppose the main one at the top of the list is Tyler Young has decided to ask for a trade to go to West Coast, which I think is fine. Like, I don't know. Look, honestly, I do see quite a lot of comments who are very understanding of the move, but I'm seeing quite a lot of comments that make it seem like he's gone full Zach Merritt, which I don't quite understand. But anyway, let's sort of step through it and map it all out, just so everyone can be, I guess, at ease with the whole scenario, I guess. I suppose, firstly, a lot of it will come down to opportunity. So in our current backline, as Uze said to me at the press conference, that they view Noah Bolter as a defender. I know a lot of us, maybe even me included, don't mind the idea of him floating forward or playing on the wing and things like that. But at the club, they view Noah's best work and the most advantageous for the club as a defender, which I think I would probably say that 90% of the supporter base would agree with as well. And I'd probably deep down too do agree with that too. So he'll hold down one spot. Ben Miller obviously had a super year last year, really good year the year before, was quite comfortably our best key defender all year. He's got the number 2 spot. So then there's a third spot available that's going to be up for grabs between Gibcus, Young, Trainer, and Campbell Gray. Now, Trainer's probably going to get slot in other ways to get him the exposure and game time. So it's probably more between Bolter and Gibcus. Look, you would have to, the logical argument is that we've invested a bit more, I suppose, pick-wise and draft capital-wise in Gibcus. We've obviously invested a bit more time in Tyler Young, or both of them, to be honest, with the rehab with their injuries. So is the game time guaranteed for Tyler Young? Maybe not. I don't know. I'd like to think it is, because I thought he had a really good year when he came in and played for us. We all saw the defensive side of his game was still really, really good. But what he added that he didn't have previously was the offensive side of his game, the run and carry, the really accurate kicking. Those were the things that we hadn't really seen much of. And that's what was probably proving to be really valuable. But if you go to, I suppose, the West Coast side of things, they've lost McGovern, they've lost Starcevic, they've lost Barras. Like, that's all in the last year, really. So that's some big holes they've got to fill. So he's probably guaranteed to be an absolute lock starting defender for them, more so than he is for us. So I don't begrudge a player for that whatsoever. Secondly, and I think most importantly, he's out of contract. So it's not like he's 3 years into a deal, 3 years into a 5-year deal and wants to leave. He hasn't got years to run, so he's not done the dirty or anything like that. And from what I understand, I don't think he shopped himself around. It very much sounded like clubs were contacting him because they saw how good, or his manager, should I say, because they saw and appreciated how good of a year that he had. That's why the Bulldogs would have reached out. I think it was St Kilda or Collingwood, might have been Collingwood, reached out, and West Coast as well, because they obviously identify a need for a defender. So they're doing their due diligence to ask the question. And from what I understand, it was always, for Tyler's perspective, if we could match the best offer, that his preference would be to stay at Richmond. And for whatever the reasons may be, we haven't obviously matched the highest offer. Look, I guess we'll never know the real numbers because that, never comes out. But from what I read around the traps, it sounds like it could have been upwards of $100,000 difference a year, maybe. But again, you don't say that with any fact. You're just going off what people have heard around the traps, which could mean something. It could mean nothing. But for a player to move to the other side of the state, you would have to assume that it would be for something substantial like that. Otherwise, it wouldn't make sense. Because when you factor in what you would then get taxed on an extra $100,000 a year, you got your manager and agent fee, having to move and pack your things up and go. I'm sure the clubs help out with bits and pieces like that too. But it just wouldn't seem viable to do that type of move if it wasn't actually for a financial gain. Unless he wanted to play for West Coast because he liked Mini more. Now that's a secondary side topic. That would be a red flag if that was the case. But all indications point to that the Eagles did just blow us out of the water with a contract. And at the end of the day, the reality is that Tyler Young is 27 and he started his AFL career later than most other players. And as such, this is his first actual opportunity to cash in on his AFL career and to try and actually get some financial stability behind him for him, his family, and his future. And I don't begrudge anyone for doing that. He's not, I don't really like seeing comments saying that he's done us dirty, because he hasn't. Like, he didn't go and sell himself around. Like I said, he wasn't in contract. He just got asked the question. Another club put a big offer in front of him, and he's done the right thing by himself, and he gave the club the chance to match it, and they didn't for whatever reasons. And he's made the choice for himself, and I think that's all fair play. I mean, I think everything that happened was pretty well above board, to be honest. No sneakiness, no nothing. And I'd honestly be pretty disappointed if I heard people start booing him and stuff on game day. I know people are entitled to do what they want to do, but I just don't think that's the circumstance or scenario to do it in, because it's not really warranted, I don't think. But anyway, we wish Tyler Young all the best in his West Coast endeavours. I mean, they may as well just wear our away strip at this stage. He's going to be a really good acquisition for them. He's going to help them out defensively. I guess the $1 million question then becomes, what do we get in return? And I think straight off the bat, it is important to flag that, yes, the pre-season draft is a live thing. It can happen. They can walk him to the pre-season draft. I do think, however, that that's not likely to happen. I really do think in this day and age, the threat of walking a player to the pre-season draft is really only reserved for like teams that are just at each other, hate each other, no relationship. I don't think we're like that. I feel comfortable that Richmond and West Coast have a good working relationship. Last year kind of speaks volumes to that. We've handed them their next captain, so I think we'll be okay. But it's what do you land on that's still the sticking point. Now, naturally, Richmond are going to ask for, let's say, their pick 20, the first pick in the second round. That probably is it overs? It probably feels like overs, to be honest. West Coast might counter with pick, I think they got 52 or 54 in the third round. That probably feels a bit too steep, because once all the other stuff plays out, that could be a lot later. And they've also got pick 34, which is where I think it'll land. I reckon it's going to be, and I'm only talking as if that we're dealing in this year's picks. There's obviously the real chance that we deal with future picks and things like that, but I haven't really factored into this discussion because it's impossible to know where it's going to land. But if we're talking strictly this year, I think it'll end on about pick 34, which even that still slides out somewhere into the 40s potentially. Are we getting shortchanged? I don't know. I mean, it's such a short body of work, but what people need to remember too is West Coast have courted him. So they've identified him as a big need for them. So I think the idea of a third pick goes out the window, because they clearly value him a lot higher than a third round pick. Otherwise, they wouldn't have blown the contract out of the water to the point we can't match it, or don't feel that we can match it. So I think you need to sort of take that on face value as well. So that, for me, that puts it straight back into the second round category at minimum. But then, yeah, it's whether other things get flicked back and forth to manipulate a high pick. I don't know, but I trust Blair and the team to do their best. You never know. We might get lucky. Matt Clark might go full Matt Clark and give us pick 2, sort of similar to what he did with the Blues and their deal last year. But yeah, we'll see where that ends up. But yeah, all the best to Tyler Young. I think he'll do well there. And look, it gives the defensive crew, there's one less spot to compete for. But then, maybe something happens or opens up for Al Noor in the VFL down the track. Who knows? The other comment I see that ties in hand with this is people getting really agitated, I suppose. Well, why did we let Blight go as well as Tyler Young? Like, poor management. Well, I don't think so. If you read between the lines with Jacob Blight, he was never coming back, no matter what. We could have gotten rid of 3 defenders and he wasn't coming back. The reason why I say that is because the fact that he was 1 game away from a trigger clause in his contract, we were running pretty empty on players. There was plenty of, whether people don't agree with the fact you could have played him forward or ruck or whatever, that's to one side. It was there for him to play. We needed to fill that role somehow, and it could have been done. And the fact that we didn't go down that path and weren't willing to play him to trigger that clause, I just think there was a little bit more to it than just the footy side of things. Maybe there's a go home element to it. I'm not too sure. But I don't have any inkling that he was going to be there no matter what. So I don't think it would have made an ounce of difference if we knew that Tyler Young was leaving. So I'm not bitter or disgruntled about that. We've also still got quality depth in that area anyway. Granted, it's a little bit reliant upon Gibcus getting his confidence back and playing how we want him to play. Campbell Gray, I think, is a really great backup. He showed some great signs. I think he could be equal to or better than Tyler Young from the limited stuff we've seen of him. And like I said, there's still someone like Elnor in the background who could maybe, does that help him find a spot into an AFL list in the future? I don't know. But yeah, that's the Tyler Young news. So I'll do some other stuff on other videos because I'm still recovering. But just wanted to get that one out there because it happened today. But let us know what you think in the comments below about Tyler Young leaving. Are you happy? Are you sad? What compensation do you think is adequate for Tyler Young? Happy to hear all reasonable and unreasonable offers. And yeah, keen to see where it lands. But yeah, again, we wish him all the best. And just make sure you consider all of the actual facts before trying to clip the guy for leaving, right? Think of it this way. If you are working in your current industry and your direct competitor on the other side of the state offered you $150,000 a year more to move to work for them, I'm tipping you'd probably drive yourself to the airport without a suitcase. It's the same thing. It's just the business. We're probably more the tribal nuffy ones as supporters, so I get it. But let's not hold it against Tyler, this decision, because I think he's done all the right things and it's the smartest decision for him. And look, ultimately, whether we like to believe it or not, he's not going to be part of our next premiership side. So it's probably an okay thing for us too to help then build for the future if we get a pick and can use it on a youngster that might be. So in a lot of ways, it could be a win-win for both clubs. So let's see how the pick plays out, and hopefully we get looked after and we can turn that into a little piece of gold.